My microphone on, did I? There we go. As I was saying, this is the August 7th business meeting of the Arkansas State Highway Commission, and I'm Alec Farmer, Chairman of the Commission. I'd like to welcome everybody here and watching and listening by way of live stream. Important reminder, please turn on your microphone when you speak so those can hear you here in the room and viewing from other places. And also, as we've been accustomed to do the last few years, I'd like to entertain a motion for the usage of electronic signatures for the signing of the minute orders. So, a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
Anybody opposed? All those in favor? Aye. All right, we'll continue to do that. Let's see, our first order of business is the approval of the minutes from the June commission meeting. If everybody's had a chance to look over those, I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the minutes.
So move.
Motion second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as recorded. Moving on to the minute orders. Let's see here. Again, if you have any questions or comments during the minute orders, just jump in, and we move pretty quickly during that, so you have to jump in when the opportunity arises. But with that said, I'll ask Dave Parker, our Public Information Officer, to read the minute orders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Minute order 1 calls for the approval of the purchasing committee actions since our last meeting. Minute order 2, authorization to pay membership dues for participation in the AASHTO technical service programs. This is for federal fiscal year 2025.
Lori?
Yes.
You know, I ask these questions about our research money and things like this. I did notice that this time we did have to augment it with a little bit of state funds.
Yes, just a tad. There was some matching requirements on one of those.
But overall, the 95% of the money was dedicated by the Federal Highway Administration to be used for research, planning, and grant.
Yes, the only way you can use those funds are for activities like this.
Okay, thank you.
Lori,
Yes.
are there departments in the country that don't subscribe to AASHTO?
I don't know of any. I think we're all members of AASHTO.
There's no competing group or anything like that. It's all one.
I mean, there's other groups that you can
Right.
belong to on a national stage, but this is the one most DOTs, or all DOTs that I know of, participate in.
Thank you.
We use their training and
Oh, yeah. They're-
untold amounts of resources and
Yes, what it is it's a clearinghouse. All of the information from all the DOTs and everything that goes on, we can all stay connected and know what each other is doing and learn from each other. So it's great.
Minute order 3, this minute order asks for the authorization to pay the annual membership dues for participation in the Institute of Internal Auditors. Minute order 4 in District 6, Pulaski County. This minute order gives approval to identify the most appropriate location and to construct a new facility for the maintenance division for District 6. Minute order 5 in Crittenden County, RDOT District 1. This minute order asks for approval to change the property, which is contiguous or next to Interstate 40 and Interstate 55, from capital asset to right-of-way for job number 110651, which is titled Interstate 40, 55, and Highway 77 Interchange Improvements. Minute order 6, authorization to proceed with pavement treatment for safety improvement projects as the funds become available. Minute order 7, this minute order calls for approval of a partnering agreement with Conway, Faulkner, Johnson, Pope, Saline, and White counties, plus the city of Morrilton, to assume ownership of various state highways to offset the cost associated with the relocation of Highway 113. This project is connected to the Green Bay packaging operation, which is in Morrilton.
Lori, would you mind I think this is a real important project to highlight.
Yes.
It really exemplifies the benefits of our partnering that we do with cities and counties. And can you tell everybody a little bit about this project?
Yes. So there were some folks and Green Bay Packaging that came to us, and they needed to relocate this highway for their operations there at Green Bay Packaging. And we all came together, the city of Morrilton and all the counties that were listed. And our partnering program is not just cash contributions. There's also a way to partner with a department that includes taking over maintenance of certain state highways, and there's a money value attached to that. And so we were able to put together a partnering package that was able to accomplish this work. There's also some of the economic development funds that are included in this, which is that funding set aside for projects like this. And so the governor and the Economic Development Commission agreed to contribute some funding to this, which the commission then said, okay, we agree to it as well. So it was it's a very good example of how when we all come together, we can accomplish just about anything that needs to be accomplished when everybody steps up to the table and is willing to partner and provide what is needed to make it happen. I think, for this many counties in the city and so many players to come together was pretty unusual. We haven't had one to this magnitude in the past. So it's really a great example of what can be done with our partnering program.
Thank you.
Minute Order 8. This minute order is out of District 6. Pulaski calls for the designation of State Highway 440 from U.S. Highway 67 to Interstate 40 to be known as Interstate 440.
And then, Lori, could you just explain a little bit about what's going on there?
Well, there are rules associated with when and where you can assign an interstate designation to a route. And with the future I-57 and, Highway 67 was not an interstate, but in a future commission meeting, we're going to ask for permission to call that I-57. Once Interstate 440 connects on either side of an interstate, we're going to be able to name that Interstate 440.
So there's no improvements to 440, it's just the fact that it's being connected on both ends by an interstate.
That segment of road was built to interstate standards in anticipation of this day. We knew one day we would name it Interstate 440, but until we had all our I's dotted and T's crossed, we couldn't do it, but now we can. So it's an exciting day.
It
Yeah.
is exciting. Thank you.
Minute Order 9 in Hempstead County. This minute order asks for the authorization to rename a section of Highway 29 through the city limits of Hope as the Staff Sergeant Carlo Montel Robinson Memorial Highway. Also in Hempstead County, Minute Order 10. This action calls for the renaming of a section of Highway 67 through the city limits of Hope as the Sergeant Thomas Chad Rosenbaum Memorial Highway. And finally, Minute Order 11. This minute order calls for the naming of Highway 14 overpass over Interstate 555 in Painway as the AE-AB Blaylock Overpass. And that is it, sir.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Let's see, I think now we usually hear from our Chief Financial Officer, Patrick Patton. So, Patrick, would you like to come up?
Thank you, sir.
Morning.
The report today is going to be for the same fiscal year, 24.
hit the pad, but not the button. Sorry about that. So, looking at budgeted expenses versus actual for budget category, as you can see, we did real well. Staff paid attention to their budgets, operating budgets, and we came in under 24, almost $25 million overall. All the budget categories were under. The maintenance and salt reserve fund, we've got some mowing contracts and that we still need to distribute some expenses to. But overall, for the year, we're under budget by $25 million. If you look at the next slide by operational category, the maintenance, operations, admin, and budgeted construction, we're also under. It's the same $25 million. These are our operating expenses for these areas. As you can see, maintenance was under 20 million, administration under 2.6, operations 1.2. So we did well compared to budget for 2024. Switching over to the revenue, this one is the year-over-year revenue for 23 and 24. We pretty much pretty much dead on with Amendment 101 funds for the year. 6.6 million up for motor fuel, and natural gas once again is still down. I wanted to follow up. One of the commissioners at the past meeting asked for some information on natural gas. What's driving what I'm seeing is driving the fall off in natural gas severance tax is that production's been down 8% annually over the last couple of years. The price has been going down. For example, the average price per million BTU back in 22 was $5.32 dollars per million BTUs. For 24, it was $2.37, so half. And average for the first 6 months of this calendar year, it's at 2.11. So it looks like it's still going to be down and probably trending downward from here on out. The next slide, if you look at budgeted versus actual, this is just our operating fund. So that's where you see the difference between Amendment 101. We had a timing difference, if you remember, back in July of last year that I didn't account for, that 11.9 million went to the 4-lane highway program and not to RRA. So 11.9 of that 22 million was just a timing difference. If you look at it overall, the revenues are down 41.1 million. 22 million being with the Amendment 101, which, like I said, a timing difference of 12 million there. The rest of it being taken up with natural gas severance. So big picture, if you took all of our operating expenses, salaries, and payroll additives together that you approve the budget for annually, last year it was 483 million budgeted. We came in at 444 million. So we came in 39 million under expenses, and we were under revenues by 41 million. So pretty much flat. Everything tracked very, very flat. Go to the next slide, which is Act 416. It continues to stay flat, 1.9 million or 1.9% above June 23 of last year. If you look at it from a budget standpoint, we're 2.5 million above what we budgeted last year, or 2.6%. Registration fees came in a little bit higher. Motor fuel came in a little bit higher. As you can see, as always try to remind y'all, 35 million did come in. About 23 million was from the actual casino tax. The other 12 million or so was from the governor's fund, because we're guaranteed 35 million. With this new casino coming online, our hope is that these will continue to go up the governor won't have to pitch in any funds, and we can continue to grow this fund. The next slide is fuel consumption. Fuel consumption's up over June of last year, 41 million gallons in gas, 12 million in diesel. Alternative fuels was flat, so 53.3 million gallons above June of last year. And then the last slide is the 12-month comparison. As you can see, all categories are above. Gas is 2.71% above the previous 12 months, and overall it's 2.37% over the last 12 months. Is there any questions?
All right, thank you, Patrick.
Hey, thank you.
Okay. With that report, we'll go ahead and turn things over to the director, Lori Tudor.
Okay, thank you. All right, next up, we have Kevin Thornton, our Assistant Chief, or our Chief of Administration. He'll give you a federal and state legislative update.
Thank you, Director Tudor. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, on September 30th, 2024, the current federal fiscal year will end. This means that it's time for Congress to begin to look to 2025. I am pleased to report to you that the House and Senate have both passed their version of the 2025 appropriations or spending bill for transportation out of their full committee. While neither bill has passed the entire House or Senate, the fact that these bills have made it out of committee is encouraging. There are differences between the bills that will have to be worked out, but there is also much in common between the bills. And as a reminder, the 2025 bill is the first for Congressman Steve Womack in his role as the U.S. House THUD Subcommittee Chairman. There's also a new grant program of $200 million for truck parking. We'll be looking into this to see how we can best take advantage of it, and probably be talking with you about that later. These bills also include projects that the House and Senate have selected to receive congressionally directed community project funding. Members of Arkansas's congressional delegation, including Senator Bozeman, Congressman Rick Crawford, Bruce Westerman, and Steve Womack, have requested additional funds for transportation projects in Arkansas. The funding for the projects they have requested are $30.5 million for Interstate 49 was requested by Senator Bozeman. $3 million for Interstate 49 was requested by Congressman Womack. This is a total of $33.5 million for Interstate 49 in 2025. $6.7 million for construction of future I-57 requested by Congressman Crawford. $6 million for construction of future I-69 is requested by Congressman Westerman. $12.5 million for the construction of U.S. Highway 71B or Townsend Avenue was requested by Congressman Womack. $7 million for Highway 82 corridor improvements requested by Congressman Westerman. $6 million for improvements to Highway 112 requested by Congressman Womack. $9 million for improvements to the Highway 412 corridor requested by Congressman Crawford. And last but certainly not least, $59 million for improvements to the Springdale Northern Bypass requested by Congressman Womack. This totals nearly $140 million in 2025. While the House and Senate must agree on the final bill, and it must be signed by the President before this funding will be available to us, it is encouraging to see these projects included in the bills that have passed out of committee. When you combine the $140 million identified in 2025 with the previously awarded amounts from 2022 and 2023 and 2024, Arkansas will receive over $332 million in additional funding. Once again, we are grateful for members of Arkansas's congressional delegation that have worked so hard to provide this funding for these important projects. Director Tudor, that concludes my report.
Any questions? Nope. Thank you, Kevin. Next, I've asked Crystal Woods if she'll come up and give you an update on our efficiency review recommendation Implementation.
Good morning.
Morning.
I'd like to give you a brief update of our continued efforts to implement the 13 recommendations from the Arkansas Legislative Council efficiency study of the department. I'll be sharing the most noteworthy examples of progress that we reported to the Highway Commission Review and Advisory Subcommittee for the month of July 2024. Recommendation number 1 under the organizational structure category said we should finalize KPIs and implement performance management. As reported in your last meeting, we developed an internal data survey. That survey is now complete, and the subcommittee has reviewed the results. At this time, no additional KPIs have been identified. Therefore, KPI documentation is considered complete. Recommendation number 5 said we should implement efficiencies in procurement and purchasing. As we've discussed in the past, we split this recommendation into 2 areas: the procurement of construction projects and the procurement of equipment and materials. So in the month of July, we made progress on the procurement of construction projects after we implemented our project alternative delivery selection tool for the 2025-2028 statewide transportation improvement program, otherwise known as the STIP. Recommendation number 10 said we should implement midterm IT initiatives that can optimize business operations. Some time ago, RDOT completed an inventory of our existing applications and databases. Using these data survey results that I mentioned under recommendation number 1, we've now established a scoring system for our inventory based on relevancy, risk, and cost of ownership. Next, we will create an overall assessment for all of our applications and databases to evaluate the security and configuration of each one. And recommendation number 12 and 13 said we should ensure that our staff can develop in their careers at the department and improve their capabilities to align with our current and future organizational needs. I'm happy to report that these 2 recommendations are now considered complete with the director's approval to launch the full leadership development program. This program will allow employees who consider themselves future leaders to apply for entry into our formal program, and those accepted each year will participate in more focused leadership development activities. As you know, there are 13 recommendations, and within those 13, there are 90 rules that were proposed by RDOT and accepted by HCRAS. After the submittal of the July report, 4 of the 13 recommendations have now been fully implemented, and 64 of the 90 rules are now considered complete. That's a 71% completion rate and a 5% increase since your last meeting. Are there any questions?
Couple. When do we expect overall completion of this? Is there an estimated time frame?
Some of the recommendations are pretty long-term programs that could take several years to complete. I don't know that there's a firm date, an estimated completion date.
And then the second question I had, most of these are over 50% complete. There's only 2 of them that are not over 50%, it looks like. Is there a particular reason that those are lagging?
Number 6 on the construction contractor performance measurement, that's the one, if you'll recall, I've reported last month or so that we have some pilot projects that are underway, and as soon as those are done, we'll be able to complete those contractor performance assessments, and assuming that that pilot goes well, that should move much closer to completion.
Right. What's the other one?
Number 3, I think it's pretty close too, right?
The status of construction projects, yes. We've made a lot of progress on the construction side of that. Phase 2 is the maintenance activities, and we're getting closer with our maintenance management system to be able to make more progress on the maintenance side as well.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've got one question, Crystal.
Yes.
What did you do before you did this?
I've been at at RDOT since I was 18 years old, so I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, I'm just so impressed the job that you've done on this.
I
And
haven't done much. It's been the staff doing this.
Well-
I'm just the reporter.
You got them to do it, I guess. You compiled it, I guess, is what, I was just really impressed. But I guess I had more time on my hands and I actually read everything. How could you be familiar with all of that? And-
Honestly, I'm not. I try to prepare for what questions
Well,
you might ask,
missed your chance.
but
You missed your chance.
I make sure that there's staff in the room who can answer detailed questions if I'm unable to. So, but thank you for the
Thank
compliment.
you.
Thank you, Crystal.
She's too humble. She's pretty amazing, for sure. Okay, next we have Kelly Wiley to give you a report on bid lettings.
Thank you, Director Tudor. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. Since your last meeting, we've had 2 successful bid lettings in both June and July. As we have wrapped up the 2024 Pavement Preservation Program, these 2 lettings have primarily consisted of bridge replacement and intersection improvement projects. As mentioned during your last meeting, the May letting signified the effective close to the Department's 2024 Pavement Preservation Program from a letting standpoint. Over the last 6 lettings, the department has awarded 79 projects totaling $392 million that will provide improvements to almost 700 miles of state highways. In the June letting, we awarded 11 projects for $34.7 million. These projects include 6 highway and 5 county projects. There were 22 bids submitted from 17 different contractors. In the July letting, we awarded 8 projects for $23.6 million. All projects were state, and there were no county or city projects this letting. There were 24 bids submitted from 21 different contractors. The first project I would like to discuss was awarded in the July letting and is a project that will construct a new welcome center on Interstate 49 in Benton County. As this is not one of our typical highway improvement projects, I would like to thank Brad Spradlin with the Associated General Contractors of Arkansas for helping spread the word on this project. And just for reference, we went from having no bids submitted in our June letting to having 5 submitted in this July letting. Work on this project should be completed spring of 2026. The next project I would like to highlight was awarded in the June letting and is a project that will widen Highway 351 from 2 lanes to 4 lanes between Highway 49 and Pleasant View Drive in Jonesboro. Improvements will also be made to the intersection of Highway 351 and Highway 49. These improvements should be completed by mid-2027. Moving south into Faulkner County brings us to our next project from the June letting, which will construct a roundabout at the intersection of Highway 64 and Hogan Lane in Conway. This project is part of the department's intersection improvement program, where local entities can apply for up to $1 million in federal funding, with the department and that local entity splitting the non-federal matching funds. For projects that are estimated at higher than the federal funds available, the local entity is responsible for providing what is needed to fully fund this project. Yes, sir.
Conway has seemed to have really embraced the roundabouts. How is then, just statewide, as we've implemented these, how's the response been, and have we seen efficiencies that we expected to see? That may be a question for another meeting, I don't know.
Right.
But
Safety improvement with the roundabouts that we can show. We have data to support. And overall, especially in areas that have embraced that kind of design, they love it. They can't get enough of it. So, but then you also hear the other side. Some people just don't want a roundabout.
They don't
So
like turning
there's
right to
mixed
go left.
reviews.
Well, I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah.
million for our September 18th letting. This concludes my report, Director Tudor.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions?
Thank you.
I just have to brag on the staff a little bit. Every time I hear this report of the projects that have gone through all of the project development and get to the point of letting the contract, it's such an accomplishment. And later in this presentation to you all, Jared's going to talk about project development, and he'll give you a little insight of how exciting it is to see when projects do make it to the point where we can take bids and get them out there and under construction.
Look forward to it.
Okay, next I've got Rex. He's going to give us an update on maintenance activities.
Thank you, Director. Excuse me. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I'd like to start off by thanking you for your interest in maintenance. It means a lot that you allow me to come up and highlight them, and the men and women of our maintenance division really hold the department together in a lot of ways, and I appreciate them. It's hard work, and I appreciate your interest in this and your continued support. This morning, I'd like to highlight a few sizable projects that we've taken on with our maintenance forces, and specifically in the area of bridge preservation. You can see here in this picture, I don't know how well you can tell, but this is a before and after photo of a bridge that we did some repairs on. You can see the far left picture, that bright spot is sunlight coming through that beam. So it was in pretty dire straits. Our crews did an excellent job. As you can see, the after picture here, this was in a bridge beam repair in District 7 over the Washita River. And just always, the work they do is just so difficult and hard and rough conditions. So I just appreciate that. Okay, the next picture that we're going to show, this is a picture of the Arkansas River Bridge at Dardanelle. You may be familiar with this. We replaced the expansion joints, the finger joints in this. You can see the one on the left, why they're called finger joints. They had gotten misaligned over the years and were causing some issues with the bridge expansion. So our crews went in and took those old joints out, replaced them, and did some other work to shore up that bridge, and it's in really good shape now. They've done a great job there. And I think they're supposed to be finished next week with that project. Traffic should be back to normal. And then now I've got a kind of a video of that same project to just kind of give you a bird's eye view of it.
Taken by one of our bridge engineers using the drone.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that was a drone video that one in our heavy bridge maintenance office put together for you guys.
Those drones are used for inspecting under the
Yeah.
bridge now as well?
Yes, sir. They're to help get to areas that we can't get to easily.
Real time, yeah.
And to just make sure we're seeing everything. Yes, sir. Okay. Our bridge operation crews have continued to partner with the districts to quickly replace some bridges or decks that have gotten in poor condition. The picture here, you can see some under the bridge where you see a lot of cracks and delaminated concrete. So these bridges had gotten in really very poor condition, and the bridge operation crew works with the districts, and we've replaced the decks. Substructures were in decent shape, good shape, and so we replaced those decks to prolong the life of that bridge, keep traffic moving across them until they can work into the program for bridge replacement. So they've done a good job. We've replaced this year 4 structures doing this same thing, 4 bridge decks, and it's just a great opportunity that y'all have allowed. This was actually Chairman Farmer's idea, or one of his ideas on having maintenance crews work on these bridges and get them back in better shape. So thank you for that. One of the big, I think, preventative maintenance, biggest preventative maintenance things we do with bridges is we do polymer overlays, where we go in, we clean the decks off, we put a polymer on the deck, and then we apply an aggregate to the top for friction. This seals off the deck from the salts and the calciums we put out during snow and ice, and it prolongs these decks for many years. And we have, last year, our crews put out 300,000 square feet of this, and we've already done 100,000 square feet this year. So we're on our goal this year is 400,000 square feet, and they're on track for that. That concludes my part of the maintenance. Do you have any questions?
Just great job, Rex. And I'm always blown away by the work the maintenance crews are doing. It's difficult work, it's dangerous work, and they are out there every day, all over the state. How are we doing on recruitment and retention, staffing the department overall? I know we've had issues with that in the past, and just wondering, kind of check in on where we are with that.
We're continuing to struggle in that area, particularly in the maintenance area, but I think the latest increases we've done with the salaries will help a lot. And so Alicia and her crew are doing a great job of recruiting. So I think I'm positive about the future.
That moment to say thank you to the Highway Commission when we come to you with our operation budget. You support us to be sure that we can continue to attract and retain good solid employees. So we couldn't do that without your approvals. Thank you for that.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. I'd like to just give you a brief update on the project, the I-30 widening project between Benton and Highway 70. As I have reported in the last few meetings, in the last few commission meetings, the contractor is performing well, is on track to complete this year. We are pleased with his efforts and with their efforts, and we are seeing that we're seeing at this time. I recommend that the commission continue to defer action on the previous recommendation for default, as we see that we believe they'll be finished this year and doing a great job.
Do I hear any opposition to that? Hearing none, we'll continue to defer the default process until our meeting in October 2nd.
Okay, that concludes my report.
Thank you, Rex.
Thank you.
So now on to recent department activities. On July 9th and 10th, we held our 2024 engineering intern orientation. Every year, we bring in civil engineering interns that are working all over the state and in the central office. And we gather them up for a couple of days to kind of have a workshop, if you will, learn more about the department, the different branches, the different engineering opportunities here. This year, they toured the materials lab. They heard from all 3 of our chiefs. They heard from different division heads on what those divisions do. This year, we had 58 engineering interns in attendance, and 16 schools were represented. And to me, the internship program that we have here is our best recruitment tool that we could possibly have. Because if we get a college student come work for us several summers in a row, our opportunity to offer them a job and them accept it increases exponentially, in my opinion. And we have gotten, I believe all of y'all were in the engineering intern program, and I have a little treat for you. This was one. This was our engineering intern class that gathered together in a summer in early 1990. I'm not sure. They didn't give me the exact date, but I'm gonna point out that little photo. Can y'all recognize that smiling face? That's our own Rex Vines. There's Cannon, Calicott.
Yeah.
That's Stacy Burge, our District 9 engineer. Cannon is our District 1 engineer. And then that's Kevin White. He's our right-of-way division head. So started out as a lowly little engineering intern, and now look at where you've come. Come a long way, baby. So it's fun to look back at these photos, and most of our engineers, I would say, what would you say, about 80%, 90% went through the engineering intern program. Yeah. So great recruitment tool, a great way to start learning about the department. On July 16th, we held our annual Southeastern Association of State Highway and Transportation Officials, SASHTO, scholarship drawing. Each year after the SASHTO annual meeting, there's funding that's distributed among all 13 states and Puerto Rico for a scholarship program. Normally, it's about $30,000 per state. And this year, and the way we handle it is it's open to anyone that's in a VOTEC school or a college or a university. And this year we started something different. If you were the child of an employee that lost their lives in the line of duty at RDOT or in the military, you automatically got a scholarship. And there was one young lady that fell into that category. Her name was Zoe Watts. She was the dependent of fallen worker Kurt Watts, and so she was automatically awarded a $500 scholarship. And then Jared stood in for me this time and rolled the roulette wheel, or whatever we call that, and drew out 29 additional names. And we awarded 29 additional $500 scholarships to our students of employees. So this is really a great way to use that funding. And we've done different things over the past, but this way all employees get to benefit and participate. And whether whatever field you're going into, that student is going into, it doesn't really matter as long as they're into an accredited VOTEC or college or university. And they're a full-time student for the upcoming year. So that's the only criteria. I really love doing this. I wasn't able to do it this year, and Jared did an excellent job. We have a video out there if anyone wants to watch it. It's really good. So, the Interstate 55 Grant Award Celebration, as we talked about, RDOT and TDOT, Tennessee DOT, received the largest grant in our history to replace the I-55 bridge across the Mississippi River between West Memphis and Memphis. We got $394 million, which we're going to share with Tennessee, and then it's a little less than 50% of the cost of the project, so the remainder of the project will be shared 50-50 between our two DOTs. They had a big event to celebrate the grant, and that was hosted, and we were in, I think Chairman Farmer represented RDOT for us and spoke to the crowd. Pictures here, I heard he did a really good job, even had a little bit of back and forth on a matter. I'm not sure what that was, but the staff was really proud of you, I'll say that.
Well,
you held your own well. So.
I'll have to say this was a much more pleasant trip to Memphis to talk about a bridge than the last time I was over there.
Well, enough said about that. Yeah, that was a good event, and actually the Federal Highway Administrator, Shaylin Bott, was there. That's a very high level position in Washington D.C., and he came. He's a big Elvis fan. And I think that's what nailed it, Memphis, Elvis, all that. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, it was a very worthy project. That bridge is in 1959, I believe, is when it was built, and it is just it's overdue to be replaced. It is actually very strong, and there's nothing wrong with it, but it's narrow and what we call functionally obsolete, like most of us here in this room. But no, it. Anyway, but it was a great event, and there was great participation from everyone, and a day to celebrate. And I thank you, Chairman, for stepping up. And I know you had a lot going on, but I was glad we were represented so well.
I was glad to make it. I was glad we were represented. It was quite an event. Big deal over there. So
It's a big deal.
yes, it is.
Yeah. Okay, so that was about all that happened last month, but Jared Wiley is going to do our Around the Department series and talk about project development. I believe, Chairman, that you asked for this, and as we got into it, we realized that there is so much material to cover in this topic that we're going to break it up into 2 commission meetings. So this is part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 next time, but I'm going to hand the
And so many people just have no idea what all goes into developing a project from its inception to completion. And I think it's helpful to remind everybody every once in a while what exactly is involved.
Thank you, Director. As Lori said, I'll be presenting this in 2 parts due to the complexity and just the numerous milestones that have to be completed before we get a project ready to construct. But when you see crews out there working on the road and equipment, that's a culmination of multiple years of hard work by our staff every time you see it. So today I'll focus on
different,
Right.
a whole different, in a different category of how to get those ready. These are from our more complex capital congestion relief projects, anything that requires more than just overlays and things like that.
Yes, thank you, Director. The graphic on this slide will highlight those essential milestones that we have to achieve before we take bids on a project, and we'll talk about all these in parts 1 and part 2 of my presentation. I want to say thank you to all of our pre-construction division heads who are here with us today, and ask them to stand up and be recognized for us. So these are the leaders. Thank you for being here. These are our leaders. They are tasked with the job of getting these projects ready to go to construction, and they do a great job of leading and inspiring their staff, and we appreciate their wisdom and expertise. All right, we've talked about STIP. I want to just hit it briefly today. As you know, before a project becomes a project, we have to have ideas about what we need to do and build, and we get those ideas from all over, from the public, from public officials, from department staff. Once we receive these ideas for projects, we categorize them as shown on the screen, either into system preservation, a safety project, or a capital improvement project. Once we do that, our staff in the program management division works with the administration to determine the amount of funding we expect to be available over the life of the STIP, which covers 4 years' time. And once we know that, we sit down with the commission and talk about priorities and how to utilize that funding. For the latest STIP cycle, we looked at adding 27 and 28, so 2 fiscal years to the program. During that process, we reviewed 950 requests for projects totaling over $20 billion worth of work. We were able to allocate about $2 billion over that time period, and so we've done that. At your last commission meeting, we received your approval to release that draft STIP to the public for comment. We did that. We received 18 comments, I'm told, and so we're working through those comments. We should receive approval from the MPOs later this month for their tips that roll into the STIP. And we'll be back in October to show you guys the final step, the changes that were made or suggested by the public, and to get your approval to adopt the step and send it to the Federal Highway Administration for final approval. Just to note, this upcoming step adds 235 projects to cover that $2 billion. So once that step is approved, our project development process really begins in earnest when those folks you saw in the back start their work. They begin to collaborate to ensure that everybody's on the same page as we start down the project development pipeline. Of course, if we're not on the same page, we have to do rework, and we don't want to go back and start over if we don't have to. So that collaboration on the front end is extremely important. I'm going to explain these graphics here. This graphic on the top is something our staff sees and knows and loves. We see it every day. It's the way we track our projects in the department as they progress through our machine here. On the bottom, I just brought that slider bar in so we can track each milestone today as we complete it and just see how far we've come. So the first box represents the planning process, and so we'll talk about that first and push through. But after the STIP's adopted, our staff will meet and talk about the projects and decide how much time they think their staff will need to complete their task. So you see the durations at the bottom of the screen. We think that we need that many months for each of those phases: planning, design surveys, roadway, the environmental process, the right-of-way acquisition and relocation process, and the utility relocation process. So these numbers, these durations represent your typical, I would say, medium-sized project that comes in from the STIP. If you've got any questions along the way, please stop me. I'm going to try to cover a lot of technical information without getting too deep into it.
Jared?
Yes, sir.
So if I understand this graph, from the time you start planning until the utilities have been moved, before you actually start construction, correct?
Yes, sir.
That's what this
Yes, sir.
represents. That could be as much as, what does that all add together?
That's about 4.5 years right there.
4 years.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
And I would like to say that at the very beginning, everybody's just giving it their best guess. But as the project progresses, that always changes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Could change to be less or more. Mostly more. Okay.
Yes, that's a good question.
Yeah, I think that's, I think most of the public doesn't really recognize that. I think they think projects, not that they're in error or anything, but I think the perception was for me, before I was educated properly on this, that the projects could pretty well be proposed and they get started in a year or so.
Yes, sir.
So the revelation that it's, takes this amount of time to get ready to start the project, I think is critical for the public to understand too.
Yes, sir. And I'll talk a little bit at the end of this presentation today about what happens when we have those changes and show you how that sort of impacts our schedule a little bit too. So those durations are then turned into target dates. So these target dates are developed and arrive from those durations and staff workload. And these are what our division has used to try to make sure their staff is getting the task done on time so we don't lose time in our schedule. So that's what those dates represent on the target date line. Okay, so after we've scoped that project, it's now survey's role to get out there and collect data for us so that we can start designing the project. So you'll see there I popped in on the planning, 100% complete, and in this instance they're completed on time, June of 25. So 6 months later, surveys begins their work. Okay, the surveys group, they do 3 types of surveys. They do design, control, and parcel surveys. We'll talk about design surveys mostly today, but these provide critical information to our design staff about the topography of the land, including any obstacles and constraints that our design staff need to be aware of as they begin their work. These constraints might include any known utility infrastructure and other physical features that we should be aware of. As with most of our key milestones in the process, this survey portion is complex. requires a lot of steps. I'm going to hit the high points today, though. Our surveys division has 12 statewide crews and 12 on-call consultants that help us achieve all the survey work we need to do day in and day out. Each crew consists of about 4 employees who are on a constant statewide travel status, so they're out on the road every day collecting data for us to make sure projects get delivered, and we certainly appreciate their sacrifice. Okay, as you imagine, survey requires a lot of equipment, right? We do technical work. We need a lot of technical equipment. They operate 12 total stations, surveying instruments, 12 GPS base stations around the state to talk to those instruments. We have a boat we use to survey with, 2 drones, and an airplane equipped with a large format digital camera. You can see that on the screen. The first step in the process is the collection of aerial imagery of the proposed project location. We use that 2014 Cessna 206 airplane to collect those images. Air Resources Group helps us manage the plane, and they provide the pilots for those flights. We do have a photographer that rides with the pilot and makes sure flight lines are good, make sure that we're getting quality imagery as we are out there doing our work. And we use this plane 20-25 times a year to fly projects. Each project, each mission collects data for multiple projects. So we do our best to get all we can when we're out there. And this image on the left shows the Clinton Library area, Interstate 30. That's our 30 crossing project. That's what that is. And you'll see in a lot of our photos, like you see online, we try to fly when there's leaves are off the trees in the wintertime. That allows us just to get a better view of what's underneath that tree canopy. All right, the next step is Dave and his staff, they complete a control survey to ensure that all this aerial photography, this survey work is tied together and connected to a common reference point and datum to ensure that our accuracy is spot on. We need everything to be precise so we can do our work. After we collect that aerial imagery, we use LiDAR to collect roadway and terrain data. In days past, before LiDAR, of course, we couldn't collect this fine data point, but we would have people out there on the road taking a shot with a rod and a survey gun at every location we need to get information about. Now we can fly that drone, collect this data on the fly, and that point cloud that you see there, colorized point cloud, bounces back and is collected and brought into the office for processing. So it's really remarkable what they do with the drone technology that we have today. Just for fun, here's a drone shot, LiDAR of our complex here in Little Rock. That is collected from that LiDAR drone. That's right. Each data point it bounces off of the surface, bounces back to the drone, and it measures the elevation relative to the earth, and that's how we create this 3D image. Pretty fascinating. All right, next we do field surveys to tie in those gaps, to fill in the gaps where the drone or the LiDAR may be a little weaker. We tie drainage, other features that may be obscured, and make sure that we've got those delineated. And then we combine all that information into computer-aided drafting files, software that combines topographic mapping and these terrain models, and we ship that over to our designers now to start their work. Each crew completes about 6 to 8 new design survey projects per year. And this process from obtaining that aerial imagery to completion takes 8 to 12 months. Sometimes there's lag based on scheduling and when we can fly. All right, so moving ahead, we see now we're tracking across. Design surveys is 100% complete and on time in that 9-month time period. And so now we've identified what we're building. We know our elevations and topography. Now roadway design begins their work in earnest. Roadway's made up of 40 staff members, including engineers, technicians, and administrative staff. We also utilize multiple on-call consultants to help us supplement that staff. 235 projects coming in. There's a lot of projects in the works at any given time. Design typically accounts for 10 to 15 of our total project costs. Roadway Design is tasked with taking that design survey and incorporating other technical information that they need, and they gather that from various divisions around the department, many of whom aren't here today, to create a concept that will eventually become a refined set of plans that our contractors will use to build their project. So I want to talk a little bit about, and I'm not going to, of course, we couldn't go into all those details today, but I'll just talk about some high points. Roadway's working on these phases as they progress, but first, our roadway design and consultant teams begin with preliminary engineering, which includes things like traffic analysis from the planning division to determine what types of vehicles are expected to use the facility and how many there will be out there. This information is used to determine the number of lanes, the width of the lanes, the shoulder widths, all those physical features of the highway. Soil surveys are conducted by our materials division to determine the suitability of those materials in the region, in the area, for road building. We coordinate with stakeholders to talk about that project, and we develop design concepts during this phase. Once the team gathers all this information and much more, they begin to develop the actual geometric features of that highway, including the most efficient curves and hills that meet the necessary standards for the design speed that we plan to build out there on the roadway. The pavement structure must be designed using that pavement and traffic data to ensure that it holds up to the traffic that's going to be using it. Once we have the geometrics, the pavement design, our teams start working on developing hydraulic models to ensure that everything drains properly. We don't want to create floods, and that model helps us do that. This model is used to develop bridges and culverts, size them to ensure that stormwater is conveyed properly and that the impacts to surrounding properties are minimized. So when we combine all this, the hydraulic features with geometric design, we're able to begin establishing the right-of-way necessary to build that project. The terrain of an area, of course, dictates the amount of right-of-way we need. In hillier areas, we expect to need more right-of-way to make sure we can cut the slopes back, build the slopes, and get the drainage in. In flatter areas, we typically don't need quite as much. This whole process takes between 6 and 12 months, again, depending on that complexity of the project. Once we reach 60% completion in design, and we're confident with what we've got there, we hand that ball off to environmental division to begin their work. But I want to just point out, design work, of course, doesn't end there. They jump off the critical path at this point, but they're still doing a lot of work behind the scenes, and that work continues throughout the life of the project. All right, so environmental, roadway, again, has reached that 60% completion phase on time, and now environmental is going to proceed with their work under the guidance of the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969, or NEPA. We call it NEPA here. That's a lot of words to say, so we shorten it to NEPA. And anytime federal funds are used for a project, NEPA, of course, comes into play and drives and dictates what we're going to do. The NEPA process allows transportation officials to make decisions for projects that balance engineering and transportation needs with social impacts, economic impacts, and impacts to our natural environment.
Chair, I got a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
The historic structures that we work around, does that fall under environmental or right-of-way?
Environmental, yes,
Okay.
ma'am, sure does. So you'll see one there on the bottom right of the screen. That's a historic structure there at Kingston along Highway 21 that we're working to gather information about. That process, the environmental process, includes those natural resources. Some examples are endangered species, wetlands, and streams. We have to look at cultural resources like archaeological sites and historic structures. So archaeologic site there on Highway 112 near Town. We're doing a dig up there that was taken last year. So we're getting ready for those 112 projects. And on the left, we talked about that last commission meeting. That's the crayfish relocation on Highway 679 in Jefferson County. Environmental also looks at communities, traffic noise, air quality, hazardous materials, impacts to parks and recreation, and visual quality within their processes. These are things that have to be done. No shortcuts are taken. We have to do all these things. They complete their work with a total of about 44, 45 employees, and they have a variety of specialties over there, from botanists to chemists to archaeologists. They really do a phenomenal job. They have 14 varied on-call consultant firms that help them achieve their work as well. They get to be out in the field a lot, so they do a lot of really interesting work, again, like you see on the screen. Also, environmental is tasked with holding our public involvement meetings, and they're an important part of that design and project development process. The public is informed about projects through the STIP, but through that public meeting, they get to engage with our staff and interact with the design and provide one-on-one comments to our people to take into consideration as they continue their design work. Just like RDOT projects come in a variety of sizes, so do NEPA documents that must be completed for these projects. So on your screen, you'll see 3 different types. So NEPA documents are broken into 3 different types. Top left is the categorical exclusion. Most of our projects fall into that realm. Those are used when we have minimal impacts to the built environment, and they take up to 6 months to complete. Environmental assessments are needed when the potential for impacts is determined, and we work through those impacts until we reach a finding of no significant impact from the Federal Highway Administration. That authorizes us to move forward with the project when we receive that. That usually takes about a year. However, on the bottom, that's one document there. That's the Interstate 57 Environmental Impact Statement. That takes about 2 years to complete, and those are used for the biggest projects that are expected to have the most impacts. And, you can imagine building 40 miles of new interstate is an undertaking, and there's the environmental document that's associated with that. All right, when we complete the NEPA work, the environmental approval, that allows us to transition into the right-of-way acquisition phase. So our next step, once the environmental is approved, is to go into right-of-way acquisition. However, again, same with roadway and other divisions, their work doesn't end there. Once we move, they have to still work on obtaining our necessary permits, making sure we're being good stewards of their environment and resources, and they have to ensure that we're doing any necessary mitigation and following through with that after the project's built. If we impact streams, we have to set like habitat aside to protect those streams in the future. So environmental is tasked with that work. All right, this is my last slide, and I just want to talk quickly about what happened. So up until now, we've followed this project and we've stayed on track. But oftentimes, as Director mentioned, schedules get changed based on additional information that we learn throughout the process. New development that may occur adjacent to a proposed improvement, new utilities, changes at the request of the public or from landowners, they can all impact schedules. So I'm going to show how a schedule may be impacted if we got through the environmental process to right-of-way and then had to back up and rethink a few things. So in these cases, these dates no longer hold, and we have to go back to roadway to have them tweak the plans a little bit. And in this example, they're going to need 6 months to do that work, and the environmental is going to need 3 months to go back and finish their process after that work's done, and it ends up pushing our utility date, which is typically the date we try to let a project take bids on it, out that 9 months. This can happen, and it happens on a lot of projects. One good example is on Highway 112 in northwest Arkansas. Several large projects there, widening a 2-lane road, and the constraints are there. We've designed them, but we've had requests for changes to pedestrian infrastructure, including additional tunnels, crossing wider pathways. That requires us to go back and rethink a few things, adding roundabouts at later stages of design, new subdivisions. That's a growing area. Subdivisions are popping in that have been built maybe after we took that design survey, so we have to go back and make some tweaks to make sure we're not impacting those new homes. So again, those are just a few examples of how projects can change. If in this example we only went back to roadway, if we have to change significantly enough, sometimes we have to ask Dave and his crew to go back out and resurvey and grab a few more surveying files for us. So in that case, of course, that timeline is compounded. So I'll stop there, Director, and take any questions that you have.
Any questions?
Very thorough. A lot goes into it.
Yeah, and that was high level.
I'd hate to see the low level.
Yes, sir.
I have one that sort of jump ahead, and I don't have the answer. I don't know. But when we saw all that play out, and I know that you can, yeah, okay, there you go. And so you do your right-of-way acquisition, utility relocation, and then finally you come to your bid letting. Let's say that the bids come in too high. I mean,
Yeah, it happens
you just
sometimes.
wait till you gather more money? Or does that kill the project?
So if the bids come in too high, we'll take a look at those bids. We'll often talk to contractors and get their feedback. We may tweak the plans a little bit to try to address some of their concerns. Maybe we've put time constraints on the project that's driving the price up. Maybe we relax that a little bit. Maybe we make some design changes, and then we rebid.
You have to go all the way back.
Those changes are typically more minor. Those are more minor changes. So most often we can take bids again at the subsequent or the following letting if we reject all bids. So it doesn't take a long time typically.
Okay. 'Cause okay, but if you have to go back, in other words, you got to call, if you have to cut some costs, you've got to go back, and I can see where they can plan your planning, your scope, your survey.
Right.
You could,
Yeah,
in theory, have to start almost again.
Yes, sir.
That would be wild, probably, but okay.
And,
But it does push it all way back.
That's right. And hopefully we can make those changes in the existing right-of-way footprint so we don't have to go back and acquire or move any additional utilities. When you bring those factors in, and we'll talk about that in part two, that really adds to our timeline.
But there are situations where, well, we just can't afford this. The benefit for this work is not enough for the expense that we're seeing. So that has happened before. We just table a project because it is too expensive, and there's.
You've done all the expense to get to there to find out
You can't afford it.
you can't afford it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate when that happens. It doesn't happen a lot, but.
Been there many a time. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jared. Next, I've asked Maggie Garrett, our Chief Internal Auditor, to come up, and this is a yearly presentation that our internal audit makes to the commission. So, Maggie, would you like to, or would you like?
Thank you, Director, Mr. Chairman, and Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. The Internal Audit Division follows the Institute of Internal Auditors standards, and those standards require that as the Chief Auditor, I prepare certain documents and present them to you for approval. Oh, I apologize. There are two documents which I'll be seeking your approval on today. One is the Internal Audit Charter, and the other is the Internal Audit Division's 2025 Annual Audit Plan. So we'll talk about the charter first. I used language from an Institute of Internal Audit Standards and Guidance tool called the Guide to Customizing the Model Internal Audit Charter for Public Sector Use. This model charter is intended to be customized to fit the needs of any entity. The charter is a formal document that sets forth the mandate by the Commission to the Internal Audit Division that establishes our organizational independence, requires conformance with the standards, and defines our scope of work and types of services. So regarding organizational independence, I report functionally to the Commission and administratively to the Director. So you can see that on our current organizational chart. This positioning appropriately establishes independence and ensures our auditors can maintain their objectivity. In talking about the conformance to the standards, we have developed an internal assessment process to identify our deficiencies and opportunities for improvement. And then we also have an external assessment of internal audit services scheduled to begin toward the end of September of this year. The types of services include independent assurance and advisory services. So the assurance services are referring to our audits and our reviews. The advisory services, an example of an advisory service might be where department staff are looking to implement a new computer system, and they would like us to come in and look at the control processes to make sure that they are appropriate before the computer system is built and implemented. But the nature and scope of advisory services can be agreed upon with whoever is requesting the service, but our internal audit division staff have to make sure that they don't assume management responsibility. So that sums up the information to be presented for the charter. I would like to request approval of the internal audit charter and would be glad to entertain any questions.
Is there any other questions? Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion to approve the charter.
Second.
Second from the Vice Chairman. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. The charter's approved. Congratulations.
Thank you. So next, we'll talk about the 2025 annual audit plan. And before I begin with that, I would like to thank department staff, including Director Tudor and Department Administration, for providing input and feedback to help us with our internal audit planning. I'd also like to thank my staff who assisted in compiling the annual audit plan. So to complete the plan, we performed an analysis of the results of a survey sent in March of 2024. We interviewed management. We reviewed previous audit reports, commission meeting minutes, control self-assessments, the department's strategic plan, financial statements, and other information. And in the presentation today, I will provide and talk about the points which are necessary, but the discussion will be at a very high level. You can find more detail about our planned audit work within the document that you received in the commission packet. So the audit plan was developed to fulfill the purpose and the mission of the Internal Audit Division. And the main point of our purpose is that we are providing services that are designed to add value and improve operations, while our mission is to earn and preserve the trust of our Kansans by promoting accountability, integrity, and efficiency. The Institute of Internal Auditor Standards were used to develop the audit plan. The standards include guidance on selecting projects using a risk-based approach. So that includes our selected audits, and I will go over a list of those on the next slide in just a moment. Advisory engagements, so that includes our work that we do with control self-assessment. Mandatory audits or reviews, which are required by law or regulations. So this includes our work that we do with the international fuel tax audits and the indirect cost rate reviews. Performing quality assurance activities. So this includes our internal and external assessments that I mentioned just a minute ago. And then also other projects and activities. So that would encompass our investigations that we do and the work that we do with motor fuel discrepancy reviews. The standards also require that I confirm to you that we have the resources that we need to accomplish the plan. And so I'll take a moment and mention that we have been provided the appropriate budget, staff, and technology resources. So based on the guidance for using a risk-based approach, the projects we selected for this audit plan year are the inspection and bridge management sections of the Bridge Operations Division, the appraisal and acquisition sections of the Right-of-Way Division, District 1, 4, and 8 in their related resident engineer offices, the processes related to impacts of personnel actions on systems, the department's ethics program, and the department's credit card program. Again, this is a very high-level look at our audit plan. If you did happen to scan through the audit plan in your packet, you may have noticed a detailed list with associated hours for each project. If for some reason we don't use those hours for a project, we'll move it to other projects, and we'll have the flexibility to take on new projects if we need to. Also, I will communicate anything of a nature which arises by performing this work, which I believe that this commission should be aware through our quarterly reports. Also, I have monthly meetings with the director, and I also meet with the chairman periodically, usually around commission meeting time. And we also have the opportunity to talk about any emerging issues or concerns that I might have. So with that, I would like to ask that the 2025 annual audit plan be approved, but would be glad to entertain any questions.
Any questions? Do I hear a motion? Got a motion for approval. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the 25 plan is approved.
Thank you. So at this time, I would like to take just one more minute and tell you about what we've accomplished in the last fiscal year. We've completed 82 international fuel tax agreement audits, 60 indirect cost rate reviews, and have issued 20 internal audit reports. The total motor fuel assessments we recommended to DFA for collection from the review of motor fuel discrepancies was approximately $2.9 million. We also issued reports for 2 investigations and facilitated 58 control self-assessment sessions. Again, if you would like more detail about any of our report or our work, feel free to contact me and I'll be glad to provide that to you. So the purpose of the Internal Audit Division mentions adding value and improving operations, and I believe that we are doing that with our audit work. I have a great group of people to work with, and I really do appreciate the work of my staff and what they do. So, Director, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Maggie. And there's one thing I'd like for you to just talk about just a little bit. You completed, you said, let's see, control self-assessments over the last year. How many of those did you complete?
58.
58. Oh, yeah, there I see it. 58 control self-assessments. And I think that is one of the biggest added values that our Internal Audit Division is adding to our department. And Maggie brought that on in full force when she came on as our chief auditor. I'm so glad that she did. But talk about that just a little bit, because I think that's important for the commission to know what that really means.
Okay, I'd be glad to. So a control self-assessment, it's an exercise that's actually conducted by management, but internal audit can facilitate that process. And so what we do is we start with making sure that divisions and sections have identified all of their objectives, and then we take a look at the risk to those objectives and talk about concerns that staff may have as far as being able to meet and achieve their objectives. And then we go through and we talk about the control activities that are in place to mitigate those risks, and are those controls sufficient or not? And if they're not, then what things can we do to put in place where they can be mitigated sufficiently. And so it's a really good exercise to sit down and talk about what challenges staff are having. And then after we go through that process, we also, as internal audit, we also document that information. And so that information then rolls up through the next level of administration. And so if there are issues that, staff are concerned about, then they can be addressed as the information goes through the process.
to me, having that ability for staff to come in and sit down and talk about what they're concerned about, what they worry about, and having that opportunity for us all to understand there might be something going on we need to address. I think that provides so much value, and I appreciate that a lot. So thank you, Maggie.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, everybody that's presented reports today has done a fantastic job, but since we only see her once a year, we'll single her out. But I just want to say, Maggie, she tackles this with enjoyment and excitement. When we meet we've met 3 times, I think it's the last 12 months. Normally when you say audit, people's eyes glaze over, and she has done a fantastic job. I would put our internal audit division up against anybody in state government. And
Thank
just
you.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate
And
that.
I appreciate the director, we're providing her with the resources she needs to do a top-notch job. So thank you both.
And if you do get a chance, just don't have anything to do, time on your hands, go through that audit plan. It's pretty phenomenal. She's got it. I mean, it's very detailed and very well done, very professional. I'm glad. And that gives us a lot of comfort and assurance that we're continuing to go in the right direction here at RDOT. So upcoming events, quite a bit coming up. We had a pretty slow July, but we're getting geared back up, so. Okay, so on August 12th, which is this coming Monday, we're going to have the Highway 113 groundbreaking with Green Bay Packing. Did I say that right? Green Bay Packing, that's right. And we're going to do that. Commissioner Holder and I will be there at that event. Of course, you're all invited to come. August 14th, Arkansas Concrete Pavement Conference. I'm going to present to that group. August 14th, we have a meeting with Congressman Womack's staff, Vice Chairman Taldo, Commissioner Gibson, and myself, and the staff are going to just sit down with them for a lunch and just talk about issues and just connect. It's going to be a great meeting. August 16th through the 21st is the SASHTO annual meeting in Rogers, Arkansas. Everyone should be familiar with that by now. We talk about it quite a bit. We're excited. We're ready to go, right? Everybody ready? It's finally here. I mean, it's really here. And so we've been planning and working on it for 2 years now, and it's just great that it's finally, and we know it's going to be awesome. And I will say it many more times, but I thank you to our industry partners and stakeholders who have stepped up and sponsored events and helped us put on a really nice conference as we invite all these different states into Arkansas. And we're going to put on a conference I think everyone will be proud of.
Laura, I was just curious, how many states are coming and how many total attendees from other states are attending?
We've got a total of 1,400 delegates that have registered. So 1,400 delegates and are attendees. And then that represents 13 states, including Arkansas and Puerto Rico.
That's great. Well,
Yeah.
I know you'll show them an Arkansas welcome, so.
Yep. Southern hospitality.
Southern hospitality. All right.
August 28th, there's a meeting with the City of Barling with Commissioner Gibson and Jared Wiley. September 2nd, Labor Day holiday. September 4th, I hope y'all have been kept it hasn't really snuck up on us because they started talking about it a long time ago, but they finally have started solidifying some of the plans to hold a joint committee on transportation meeting in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I think they're thinking about doing it in Fort Chaffee. Are you familiar with this, Keith? Okay, we'll get you up to speed. This is something that Senator Boyd, Justin Boyd, he's doing. He wants to hold a joint transportation committee meeting there with the legislature. And he's asked me to come and do a presentation on I-49 but we'll make sure all of you are aware of it if you want to attend. It's something he's trying to do to generate support for transportation in your area. September 10th, I have a PE board meeting. September 11th through 12th, the Good Roads Foundation Policy Event. This will be our third annual event, and it's going to be fabulous in Mountain Home, Arkansas. I can't wait to go. It's over 2 days, and it'll just be wonderful to meet there and talk about the issues for that part of the state. September 13th, County Judges Association meeting, and you're presenting at that, Chairman?
Yes, I've been asked, Jonesboro's hosting it, so
Okay.
Where is that?
Jonesboro, they're having a County Judges Association meeting there, so all the counties will be represented or have the opportunity to be represented there.
Yeah. I've attended that event when it was held in Saline County one year, and it's a great event. You get to meet with all the county judges, all 75 of them, so it's great.
Looking forward to it.
We have an Asher's Board meeting on September 16th. September 18th is our virtual commission meeting that we'll be holding to go over the appropriations budget. If you'll remember, we have an operations budget which you recently approved. This is the appropriations budget that we submit to the legislature for approval, and it has to do with our salary ranges, and mostly it has to do with our salary ranges. So this year we'll be presenting that to you over that virtual commission meeting. And the reason we're doing it virtually on that date is because of the timing of everything. The staff couldn't get it ready. The October commission meeting was too late. This meeting, it was too early. The staff could not get it all pulled together and ready for this commission meeting. So we're doing that virtual commission meeting just for that one, for that appropriations budget we need your approval for. We'll send it to you in advance, about 2 weeks in advance, for you to go over and ask questions before the meeting. September 19th, Jared and I are going to go to Omaha, Nebraska to meet with administration for UP, Union Pacific Railroad. This is an attempt to try to open lines of communication and become more collaborative in project development. We always seem to have challenges when it comes to railroad involvement on our projects. We have several projects right now that are just stuck waiting for certain things from the railroad. And we feel like this will be a great exercise in talking directly with their upper management about what we need and what can we do for them to make it easier for them, hopefully just open those lines of communication. And then finally, we'll be back together on October 2nd for our commission meeting in Jonesboro, Arkansas. Looking forward to that. We hopefully have a good meeting. This one we're used to being in this room with everything, but we know we're going to be ready to go. Parker, y'all have already been up there to do a dry run, or you're about to go, right?
We made one site survey and took 2 locations into consideration. I think we have nailed down where we're going to be. We're going to go back up late August and do a second run to make sure everything works.
Make sure all
Yeah.
the technology works.
And I was just going to add that we've talked to Lori about it, talked to the other commissioners about the need for us to be out around the state at times, and that we haven't had a highway commission meeting, an official meeting outside of Little Rock in my 9.5 years on here. And maybe once every 2 years it'd be a good idea to go out around the state. And just since I'm the chairman this year, I got to choose Jonesboro. So, but looking forward to seeing how this is received around the state, and hope this will be something we continue to do long after I'm gone. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to skip over the I-55 grant just because we talked about it earlier. August 4th was not a normal run-of-the-mill Sunday for RDOT or the citizens of Bono, Arkansas. I love whoever writes my notes. This is great. We closed Highway 63 near Bono, Craighead County, from midnight to mid-morning at the request of the military, and the U.S. Air Force and the Air National Guard each completed their own training exercises while using 3 miles of Highway 63 as a temporary airstrip. So that was pretty cool to partner with the military and the National Guard to help them with their training exercises. Here's a pretty cool looking short video from our videographer, our very own Tim McCourt, who does such an excellent job. And I'll play that for you now. So, did anybody witness that in person?
I was not in town.
Did anyone know it was happening? I hope no. I can just imagine some poor soul that went around the barricades.
Well, they wanted to keep it pretty quiet up there just for that purpose, but I think a week before they decided they better let people know where they're, some people might have, kind of like the War of the Worlds. Look out their window and seeing these planes land on the highway, so they started getting the word out about a week before. But
Yeah.
they came in a month or two, the military did do core samples on the highway to make sure that the highway could withstand it. So we didn't just drop some planes in there unprepared. But it was an emergency preparedness project, I believe, so went off well, I understand.
It did. And, you know, it makes us, we were so happy to be able to do that with the military. It's a great opportunity to partner with them, so. Just a brief update on our Fallen Worker Memorial. We are about to finish up raising the funds for that, and we have raised just over $160,000. We have gotten word that the budget for the memorial, including all the vertical columns and the site plan there, between 125 and 150, so we've got the funding in place to meet our budget and have a little left over for future maintenance. You know, again, our industry partners have been so generous and so supportive, and they have donated over $90,000 for the cost of this memorial. And our RDOT workers, both active and retired, have come together. We've done many fundraisers. They've opened their pocketbooks and been very generous, and RDOT employees and retirees have generated about $71,000 worth of donations. And we're just really excited that this fall soon we're going to have a big, exciting groundbreaking to get started on the construction. And I just want to say thank you to Good Roads. Joe, Robert Morey, and Commissioner Holder have been our little nucleus team, keeping me in between the rails and making sure I don't get in trouble and RDOT doesn't get in trouble by doing something we're not supposed to do in this. This is a realm I've never been in before, so that's been so helpful, so added so much value. And we're almost there. It's been a great summer. It's created a lot of camaraderie and fun at RDOT. We'll be sad to see it be over. You know, we want to continue on having bologna sandwich lunches and for $10. Sack lunch. We've just had a lot of fun. We have done a silent auction, sold raffles, sold challenge coins, sold tumblers, done lunches, done breakfast, and we did it no state time. If you had to be during state time, you took annual leave. I just want to make sure we didn't use any state resources to do it, but it's been a great experience, and we're looking forward to it, and then hopefully cutting a ribbon on the memorial, I hope by the end of the year, but we'll see. I'm not sure how long it'll take to construct it. So with that concludes my report to the commission. Chairman, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, is there any discussion or any comments from the commission before we adjourn?
I got one. I just want to echo what Lori said about Good Roads' participation in the Fallen Workers Memorial, and also their work on SASHTO. We've really got some wonderful things going on, and really proud to have their support in those two big efforts. So thank you.
Same here. Appreciate everything you guys have done.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no other comments, I entertain a motion to adjourn. Second? All those in favor? All right, we're adjourned.